Every day you and I get bombarded with negative news. Just like the body becomes what we eat, the mind becomes what we're putting in. It is important to listen to stories that not only gives you hope, but also inspires you and uplifts you. In this podcast, we're interviewing experts who will break down the solutions to the world's most pressing problems. And I promise you, if you listen to this podcast, you will not only stay informed, but you will also feel more energy in your life. Welcome to Great.com Talks with. Great.com is a philanthropic project where we're donating 100% of the profit towards the most effective cause areas. We're donating towards climate change right now, and best thing that you can do to help us with that mission would be to subscribe to the channel. The topic of today is, what is a productive regional economy and how do we transform communities to become more giving? And to understand more about that, we invited Felicia Lucky, who is the president of the Black Belt Community Foundation. So I want to say, Felicia, welcome to this interview.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Felicia, what would you say is the problem that you guys are solving?
Well, for the most part, we are really working to create a sustainable and equitable future for our communities across this historically underserved multi-county region of the state of Alabama, in part, which is a part of the larger Black Belt of the United States. Oftentimes people don't know that the Black Belt is named Black Belt because of the rich geography or geological soil. And if you look at a geological map, you will see from North Carolina nearly to Louisiana, there's rich Black soil, which is in a crescent shape in that part of the state. And so for us, it spans the width of the state right in the midsection of Alabama. And it is known as the Black Belt. So for us, we are really working to create a sustainable and equitable future for our communities. That is our goal. We are historically underserved. We have multiple counties we're working in, but the goal is sustainable and equitable futures for our communities.
You're talking about sustainable communities. So I guess a productive regional economy would be a sustainable regional economy.
Indeed.
Help us to understand then, what is the vision that the Black Belt Community Foundation kind of want to create? What would that look like when it's as good as you want to dream about?
Sure. So our language talks about a transformed Black Belt where all give and all reap the benefit of our shared gifts. So in short, that means that we have strong school systems that are properly educating our children, that are no longer divided by race, where we have predominantly African-American public school systems and predominantly white private school systems, that no longer exist in our community. It is where, when we are transforming, we imagine that the median income of our level is increased. The unemployment in our region has decreased. We're seeing high graduation rates with our children. We no longer have or lead when it comes to infant mortality. People are no longer hungry. People are no longer homeless. That's what we envision. And we envision that happen not just because one or two people bring that to the table, but because we are all giving and working and building towards that. So for people within the Black Belt to do this work, partner with those outside of the region to help do this work to cause this transformation. That is extremely important to us, to be able to. I tell folks all the time, I'm a native of the Black Belt, a daughter of the Black Belt, as I like to say. And I had to move from Alabama to Minneapolis, Minnesota to find work because there was not work available in my field. I would never have chosen to go that far away from home, but that's what I had to do in order to really be employed in all I had studied and known after I went to school. So our goal is to be able to provide that opportunity for other children of the Black Belt, and daughters and sons of the Black Belt, that they have a choice. And that is what is not as prominent in our region as we see in other regions. So creating this transformation will allow us to provide those choices and other opportunities and access to more opportunities in our region.
I live in Sweden, Europe, and I'm an amateur on American history, but if I recall correctly, Alabama is one of the states that has been under a lot of discrimination towards Black people. And
Correct.
Are you then saying that in today's society, in the communities, we can see traces of that discrimination in how people are still being discriminated, and especially then in a community like Alabama?
Yes, no doubt. The unfortunate state that we are in is that there are still the remnants of systemic racism and the structural inequalities that were established many years ago. The remnants are still here. The systems themselves have not totally been dismantled. And what I think oftentimes folks lose is that because of racism, so much is still as it is. When we're talking about somewhat segregated school systems still segregated by race in 2021, where private schools were built not because they were better school systems or provided a better education for children, but they were built to segregate white children from Black children. And so we're still seeing that. Now, there have been some closures of some of those schools, but in many of the counties that we serve, there's still very much those segregated school systems. So that is a lingering effect of the Jim Crow South, of systemic racism that still not only is affecting the Black Belt region of Alabama or the state of Alabama, but it's still really, it is really a thorn in the side of America. It is haunting us to this day. And until we address those systems, we will always continue to have some of the issues that we have.
If we then view the system as a person, and this person being a white person who created the system, what is it that this white system person don't see that the average Black person would be discriminated against? How is it to be a child growing up? What does that look like?
Well, let me say, first of all, I don't think that they cannot see it. I think they see it, because when you build something or when you create it for a specific purpose. And so the purpose of racism was to oppress. So that oppression still exists. It is doing the very thing that the system was created to do. So I think that if the system were a white person, they know that this system is there, that it is still oppressing and doing the things that it was created to do. I never think for 1 minute that there's not a knowledge that that doesn't happen. But some of what they would then have to acknowledge is the fact that segregation has hurt us more than helped us. That many of the systems, when it comes to unfairly discriminating against Blacks with our, within our criminal justice system, whereas Black males are targeted more specifically than white males. They go to jail, they serve longer prison sentences for smaller crimes than their white counterparts. That's broad and on display. There's never a minute that folks can say this doesn't happen. When you have police brutality that exists because of the color of one's skin, they have to acknowledge that that exists. That if you are a Black person driving a car, you're more likely to be pulled over than a white person. That exists. So I do think that folks just have to acknowledge it. I can never think that they don't see it. They know that it is doing the thing that they created it to do.
Yeah, that was, I can see why that is more correct. Of course, the system was created to segregate. Yeah. You do have some programs that you're doing, and one of those programs is actually targeting how to unlock unconscious beliefs inherited from the history of racism. And this program is called TRT Selma, Truth, Racial Healing, Transformation. Tell us, what is that about and how does it work?
Well, it is a program that we are so excited to be a part of, and especially being in Selma. As you mentioned, Selma, Alabama is considered really the heart or the cradle of the civil rights movement. It is where, for many who know about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., they know that a lot of what happened with Voting Rights Act and with civil rights for folks in America, it began in Selma. That's the heart of it. So being there, thinking of what Selma has meant, not just to the nation, but to the world, I think it is most appropriate that we began the Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation. And that entire portfolio of work centers around dismantling that there is a hierarchy of human value, that you are valued more because the color of your skin is white versus the color of your skin being brown or black. So dismantling that system and all that it takes to dismantle it. It is a very, very powerful system and has the ability, I think, to really transform a community. Some of what that means is, for instance, with the local media, if the majority of stories that are told or images that are pushed out to the public, if they always reflect Black males doing criminal acts, then that's what the community begins to believe and begin to see and expect from Black males. If that is the entire, if that's the entire language that's being spoken consistently so, then that's what we see. So a part of what TRHT does is it brings the media together along with local law enforcement, along with community-based organizations to talk about how to change that narrative, because the narrative controls and drives so much. So it is a matter of working oftentimes with the media to say, while we acknowledge that many of these images that you share are true, they are not the only images. It is not just Black males who are committing crimes. You have white males who are also committing crimes, but they never make the front page, top fold of a local newspaper, or they're never the first story that goes out. But the only way we can change that narrative is by partnering with the local media to say, this is the damage that is being done when you continue to perpetuate this system of informing with a biased approach, that there truly is a hierarchy, because if you're white, you don't get to make the papers when you do the damage or when you do crimes. But if you're Black, you do. And so it sends the message to others that Blacks are less worthy. Blacks are, you have to be aware because they will commit crimes. And folks start to internalize that and really believe it. But by working with the media, our goal is to really shift that narrative and then help to change the hearts and minds of people in that community. It is not at all a task that is for the faint of heart. It will not happen overnight, but it must be done if we are to really transform, if we are to heal, and if we are to reconcile, and if we are to continue to move forward to build our communities.
I'm hearing that society and the people in society are trapped in the narratives that the media are presenting. So you're saying that an vital part would be to help media to understand the power that they're using to be more responsible. And in such a meeting, would that be welcomed? Or is it resistance to do this kind of work? How do you work with someone? Right? Tell us a little bit about the specifics and how does that work to transform someone who already are producing a narrative that's selling?
Well, we do have some who come to the table willingly, some who come to the table not as willingly, and they are more resistant. Some who are very pleased with status quo. And until doing this work, I didn't realize that there are some who are so content with the status quo and see themselves as keepers of the status quo, that there have been threats that were aimed as a result of trying to do this work to our organization and to the project itself, because people don't want to see that type of transformation and that healing take place. I mean, there are some people who are natural dividers, but what we've chosen to do is to definitely protect all of those who are part of this work and to make investments in protecting them because their lives are important and they deserve to be protected, and to continue to do that work. And then that means we also have to partner with law enforcement because the protection of folks is important. So people come to the table and we have the conversations. We don't force it upon others, but it is a matter of them saying, if we want to build a better Selma, if we want to build all of these, if we want to build a better Selma and make stronger communities, this is the work that we must do. And so when they come to the table with that idea, then we are all much better situated as a result of that happening.
I just envision going to work. If you work in the Black Belt Community Foundation, some days you would need courage to work there.
Yes. That's probably an understatement. You need courage. You need strength. You need wisdom, and you need friends, because the work is, there are days that the work is heavy and it takes a lot out of the lives of folks who are doing this work, but the commitment always seems to reign supreme, and I think it is the desire to have better communities because we deserve better. That is the driving force for all of those that I work with. And I always consider it a gift to be in this space, to do this work. Even on the most trying of days, I consider it a gift because we have some noble friends who will take their pennies to invest in us to make this work happen. One piece that, as you talk about the courage of it, is that we have so often been taught to do as our tagline says, which is taking what we have to make what we need. We have been forced in occasion after occasion to take a little and make a lot. And what a great gift it would be for us one day to have a lot, to make a lot. We always have to take a little and make a lot. Now, but people do it and they do it unwillingly, whether it's a $10 a month contribution that says, we believe in this work. We see ourselves as a part of creating solutions in our community. So we want to give a $10 gift. I may not be able to give you a $100 gift immediately, but here's $10 to go to where this community needs it most. And for us to have that type of trust by our communities means so much to us. And it's not just folks from within, but they're also partners from outside of the region who come and give to support the work that they're doing because they see the value that we add. And our biggest piece is that we welcome folks to work with us, not to do any of the work for us, to value what we know, to value the fact that we feel very strongly in crafting our own solutions to our problems. And we will work with you to craft those, but not that someone else has the solution that they're going to bring to us. We believe that we have what we need within, but because of the systems that were initially set up, there is not the investment in philanthropy. There's not the investment in the private sector into our regions. And so it's caused us to continuously do a little with a lot.
Taking what we have to make what we need, making a lot with a little. Those are powerful messages. And
well, thank you. I wish we did not always have to do that, but that is what we've done. Oftentimes I envy other philanthropies who are more established, who have much larger endowments to do the work that they do, the liberty to do the work. For us, I don't have the privilege of choosing what happens. I can't choose to stay in a box because our foundation was really created to respond to our community's needs, to be a vehicle through which philanthropic dollars could flow and then be pushed back out into the community based off of the community's need. A very different structure than more traditional philanthropy, but a structure that empowers community to do what is best for community. It's an awesome thing to watch. And what I've learned the most is, I think oftentimes if you have a recipe, and I love to bake cakes, but if you have a recipe and you follow that exact recipe, you know it will yield you this cake. But for instance, if I am in a space and I don't have access to the same oven that I always use, I have a different oven, I may have to adjust the recipe some. I may not cook it longer, I may have to cook it longer, but at the end of the day, I still get a cake. So what I see with our communities is that the way we bake the cake sometimes looks different than others. And because it looks different, that scares folks off a little bit, because they like the way, they want it to look just like everything else looks, but our communities are different. So it's unfair to ask us to be what we're not. But what's even fairer, what's even a greater level of respect, in our words, is to be able to say that while you look different, your impact is just the same or as great. So it doesn't matter how it looks, just at the end of the day, as long as you're creating the impact and the outcomes in your communities that you desire, that is where it gets to be the most powerful. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Felicia, we are going towards the end here. And I want to give you the opportunity to, is there anything else important that you want people to understand about the foundation?
I just think, for the most part, just knowing the history of the Black Belt, the fact that at one point in time, Selma was probably one of the richest cities in the United States of America. And as of today, it is not that at all. It's actually considered to be one of the poorest. Because of the remnants of slavery, of enslaved people, the systems of racism that have continued to oppress, there is still a light. And we see the Black Belt Community Foundation as a light because it is working hand in hand with communities to build stronger communities. And we are investing in communities with the hopes of creating lasting change, with the hopes of creating systems that will no longer oppress, but systems that will lift and build on the assets and the strengths that we bring to the table. We are always looking for partners to help us do our work. So we welcome that. We welcome opportunities to share and to invest, and others to invest with us. So I want to always say to folks, if there's an opportunity to give and support our organization, we would be extremely grateful because of the work that we do and the impact that we have into our communities. And that our community will still be here years later because of the foundation that we're laying today. And what will allow us to still be here and for our communities to thrive, to not just be here surviving like we've done, but what will allow that to happen is because we are investing in the people who will own this process. It's not owned by us, but it will be owned by the people. So again, it's just a pleasure to be in this space, to do this work, even on the most challenging of days. I definitely consider it a gift to work for the people of the Black Belt.
If you want to find out more about Black Belt Foundation, our community foundation, you can go to blackbeltfound.org, blackbeltfound.org. Felicia, thank you very much for taking the time, and thank you for the courage that you are bringing into this.
Thank you so much. It has been an honor today.